The sound of my husband's laughter echoed from our bedroom as I climbed the stairs, my heart racing with excitement. I had left work early to surprise Derek for our third wedding anniversary, clutching the pregnancy test I'd taken that morning behind my back. 3 years of marriage and finally, we were going to have the baby we'd been trying for. But as I pushed open our bedroom door, my world shattered into pieces that would never fit back together again. There was Derek, my husband of 3 years, tangled in our white silk sheets with someone I trusted more than anyone in the world. My own sister, Bianca. They were so lost in each other that they didn't even notice me standing there, frozen in the doorway like a statue. The pregnancy test slipped from my trembling fingers and clattered to the hardwood floor. "Oh God, Derek," Bianca moaned, her dark hair spread across my pillows like spilled ink. "I love you so much. I can't wait until you leave her." "Soon, baby." "Very soon," Derek whispered, kissing her neck. "Simone has no idea. She's so stupid she actually thinks we're happy." The room spun around me. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This wasn't a mistake. They had been planning this. They had been talking about me like I was some fool while they destroyed my marriage in my own bed. How long had this been going on? How many times had they laughed at me behind my back? I must have made a sound because Derek's head snapped up. His dark eyes went wide when he saw me standing there. For a split second, nobody moved. Then Bianca sat up, clutching the sheet to her chest, but she didn't look sorry. She looked annoyed that I had interrupted them. "Simone," Derek said, scrambling to cover himself. "I can explain." "Explain what?" My voice came out as a whisper. "Explain how my husband is in bed with my sister on our anniversary? Explain how you just called me stupid while you were inside her." Bianca rolled her eyes. "Oh please. Don't act all shocked, Simone. You had to know this was coming. Derek and I have been in love since before you two even got married." The words hit me like physical blows. "Since before we got married?" "She's right," Derek said, and there was no shame in his voice anymore. Just irritation like I was bothering him. "I've always loved Bianca. I only married you because she wasn't ready to settle down yet." I stared at this man I thought I knew. This man I had given 3 years of my life to. This man whose baby was growing inside me right now. "So our entire marriage has been a lie?" "Not a lie," Derek said, standing up and reaching for his boxers. "Just convenient. But things change, Simone. People change. I can't keep pretending anymore." "Derek's been trying to figure out how to tell you for months," Bianca said, like she was doing me some kind of favor. "I told him he should just be honest. Rip the Band-Aid off." I looked down at the pregnancy test on the floor. The little pink plus sign seemed to mock me now. I had been so happy 10 minutes ago. I had been planning how to tell Derek about the baby, maybe over a romantic dinner. I had been living in a fairy tale while they were planning my destruction. "Get out," I said quietly. "Simone, we need to talk about this like adults," Derek said, pulling on his clothes. "Get out." I screamed, my voice echoing off the walls. "Both of you, get out of my house." "Technically it's our house," Derek said. "My name is on the deed too." That's when I knew. This wasn't just about them having an affair. They had planned this moment. They had prepared for it. Derek had probably already talked to a lawyer. Bianca was probably already planning to move in. "Fine," I said, my voice steady now. "You want the house. Take it. Take everything. But I want you both out of my sight right now before I do something we'll all regret." Bianca smirked as she gathered her clothes from the floor. "Don't be so dramatic, Simone. This isn't the end of the world. You'll find someone else. Someone else." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "My own sister just destroyed my marriage and you think I'll just move on and find someone else?" "You're being childish," Derek said, straightening his shirt. "Bianca and I didn't plan for this to happen. Sometimes love just finds a way." I wanted to tell him about the baby right then. I wanted to see his face when he realized what he was throwing away. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the way they stood together, already a unit against me. Maybe it was the way Bianca's hand rested possessively on Derek's arm. Or maybe it was the cold calculation in both their eyes that told me they had been planning this moment for a very long time. As they walked out of my bedroom, Bianca paused at the door. "For what it's worth, Simone, I am sorry it had to happen this way. But Derek and I, we're meant to be together. Surely you can see that." After they left, I sank to the floor and picked up the pregnancy test. The little plus sign was still there, bright and clear. In a few hours, my life had gone from perfect to destroyed. I was married to a man who loved my sister. I was pregnant with a baby whose father thought I was stupid. And my own family had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I sat there on the floor of my ruined bedroom, holding the evidence of the new life growing inside me, and I made a promise. I would never let anyone make me feel this small again. I would never let anyone use me or throw me away like garbage. And someday, somehow, I would make sure Derek and Bianca understood exactly what they had lost when they decided to destroy me. 3 days later, Derek served me with divorce papers. Not through a lawyer, not through the mail, but he walked into my workplace during my lunch break and slapped the manila envelope down on my desk like he was delivering a pizza. "There," he said loud enough for my coworkers to hear. "I'm making this easy for you, Simone. I could have dragged this out, but I'm not that kind of man." I stared at the envelope like it might bite me. Around us, the busy office had gone silent. Everyone was pretending to work while listening to every word. "You're not that kind of man?" I repeated. "What kind of man are you, Derek?" "The kind who's honest about his feelings," he said, straightening his tie. "Look, I know this is hard for you, but fighting me on this won't change anything. I love Bianca. I've always loved Bianca. You can either accept that and move on with your life, or you can make this difficult for everyone." I opened the envelope with shaking hands. The papers were thick and official looking. At the top, in bold letters, it said, "Petition for dissolution of marriage." My hands shook as I read through the legal language. Derek wanted everything. The house, the car, even the savings account I had built up from my grandmother's inheritance. "You want everything," I said, looking up at him. "I'm being fair," Derek said. "You can keep your personal belongings and your car. The house and savings were investments we made together." "Investments you made with my grandmother's money." Derek's jaw tightened. "That money became marital property the moment you put it in our joint account. My lawyer says I'm entitled to half of everything, but I'm being generous. I'm letting you walk away with your dignity intact." My coworkers were still pretending not to listen, but I could feel their eyes on me. I thought about the pregnancy test hidden in my purse. I had been carrying it around for 3 days trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to tell Derek right now, in front of everyone, just to see his face change. But another part of me, the part that was growing stronger every day, told me to wait. "I need time to think about this," I said. "There's nothing to think about," Derek said. "You can sign now and make this easy, or you can hire a lawyer and make this expensive. Either way, the result will be the same. I'm marrying Bianca as soon as this divorce is final." "You're marrying her?" "She's pregnant," Derek said, and my blood turned to ice in my veins. "We're having a baby, Simone. A real family. Something you could never give me." The words cut deeper than anything he had said before. For 3 years we had been trying to have a baby. I had gone through test after test, treatment after treatment, thinking the problem was with me. And now I was pregnant, and he was telling me that my sister was also pregnant with his child. "How long?" I whispered. "How long what? How long has she been pregnant?" Derek looked uncomfortable for the first time since he'd walked in. "That's not really your business anymore." "How long, Derek?" "For months," he said quietly. 4 months. Bianca had been pregnant for 4 months. Which meant she had gotten pregnant right around Christmas, when I was working overtime to pay for Derek's Christmas bonus at his job. When I was staying late every night, trying to prove myself at work so I could get the promotion that would help us buy a bigger house for the family we were trying to start. I did the math quickly in my head. I was about 6 weeks pregnant, which meant I had gotten pregnant after Bianca. Derek had been sleeping with both of us at the same time. He had been trying to have a baby with me while he was already having one with my sister. "Sign the papers, Simone," Derek said. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." I looked down at the divorce papers again. At the bottom of the first page there was a line for my signature. Right next to it, Derek had already signed his name in his careful, precise handwriting. The same handwriting that used to sign love notes he left for me in the morning. The same handwriting that had signed our marriage certificate 3 years ago. "I'll have my lawyer look at these," I said finally. Derek's face darkened. "You don't have money for a lawyer, Simone. And even if you did, it won't change anything. I'm done with this marriage. I'm done pretending to love you when my heart belongs to someone else." "Then why did you marry me at all?" I asked. "Because I thought I could learn to love you," Derek said. "Because you were safe. Because you worshipped me and I thought that would be enough. But it wasn't. It never was." The cruelty in his words took my breath away. Not just the words themselves, but the casual way he said them, like he was discussing the weather. Like the 3 years I had spent loving him meant nothing at all. "Get out," I said quietly. "Simone. Get out of my office. Get out of my life. And don't come back unless you're prepared to treat me with the respect I deserve." Derek laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Respect? What have you ever done to earn my respect? You're a secretary, Simone. You work in a cubicle and you go home to an empty house and you watch reality TV until you fall asleep. What exactly about that life demands respect? Every person in the office was staring now, not even pretending to work anymore. I could feel their pity washing over me like a wave. Poor Simone. Poor, pathetic Simone, whose husband was leaving her for her own sister. But as Derek walked away, I put my hand over my stomach where my baby was growing. Derek thought I was nothing. He thought I was weak and stupid and worthless. But he was wrong. I was stronger than he knew. And I was carrying something precious that he would never deserve. That night, I sat in my empty house and called a lawyer. Not the cheap lawyer Derek thought I would get, but the best divorce attorney in the city. I used my grandmother's emergency credit card, the one I had never touched in 5 years. Mrs. Patterson, the lawyer said when I explained my situation. I want you to know that just because your husband filed first doesn't mean he holds all the cards. You have rights. And if you're willing to fight for them, I'm willing to help you. I looked down at the pregnancy test sitting on my kitchen table. I'm willing to fight, I said. I'm willing to fight for everything. The courtroom was cold and sterile, nothing like the warm church where Derek and I had gotten married 3 years earlier. I sat at a long wooden table next to my lawyer, Mrs. Rodriguez, watching Derek and his attorney flip through papers on the other side of the room. Bianca wasn't there, which was probably smart. I might have said something I would regret. Mrs. Patterson, the judge said, looking over his glasses at me. I understand you're contesting the terms of this divorce settlement. Yes, Your Honor, Mrs. Rodriguez said, standing up. My client contributed significant assets to this marriage, including a $50,000 inheritance that was used to purchase the marital home. She's also recently discovered she's pregnant with Mr. Patterson's child. Derek's head snapped up so fast I thought he might get whiplash. His mouth fell open as he stared at me across the courtroom. I kept my face perfectly calm, even though my heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Pregnant. Derek's lawyer whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Your Honor, Mrs. Rodriguez continued, Mr. Patterson abandoned his pregnant wife for another woman. My client is requesting spousal support, child support, and her fair share of the marital assets. That's impossible, Derek said, jumping to his feet. She can't be pregnant. We haven't. She never said. Mr. Patterson, the judge said sternly. Please let your attorney speak for you. Derek's lawyer looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. Your Honor, this is the first we're hearing of any pregnancy. We'll need time to verify. Are you questioning my client's honesty? Mrs. Rodriguez asked. I reached into my purse and pulled out the doctor's note I had gotten the week before. 8 weeks pregnant. Due date in early spring. I handed it to Mrs. Rodriguez, who passed it to the judge. The judge read it carefully, then looked at Derek. Mr. Patterson, are you disputing paternity? Derek's face had gone completely white. This changes things. Yes, it does, the judge said. It changes them significantly. Mrs. Patterson, do you have somewhere safe to live during this pregnancy? She has the marital home, Your Honor, Mrs. Rodriguez said. Mr. Patterson moved out voluntarily to live with his girlfriend. His pregnant girlfriend, I added quietly, and Mrs. Rodriguez squeezed my hand under the table. The judge's eyebrows rose. I see. Mr. Patterson, you're having children with 2 different women? Derek's lawyer jumped up. Your Honor, my client's personal relationships are not relevant to the division of marital assets. They are when there are children involved, the judge said firmly. Mrs. Patterson, I'm awarding you temporary spousal support and exclusive use of the marital home until this matter is resolved. Mr. Patterson, you'll provide health insurance for your wife and unborn child, and we'll establish child support once the baby is born. Derek looked like he had been hit by a truck. Your Honor, I can't afford to support 2 households. Bianca and I are having a baby too. We need. Mr. Patterson, the judge interrupted, you should have thought about that before you got 2 women pregnant at the same time. After the hearing, Derek cornered me in the hallway outside the courtroom. Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant? When exactly should I have told you? I asked. While you were serving me divorce papers at work? Or maybe while you were in bed with my sister? This changes everything, Simone. We need to talk about this like adults. No, Derek. This doesn't change anything. You made your choice. You chose Bianca and her baby over me and mine. Now you get to live with that choice. You can't keep my child from me. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Your child? You called me stupid. You said I could never give you a real family. You said I was nothing but a secretary in a cubicle. Remember? Derek's face flushed red. I was angry. I didn't mean. You meant every word, I said. And now you want to play daddy because it's convenient? Because it makes you look better in court? I have rights, Simone. So do I said. And I have a very good lawyer who's going to make sure you pay for every single one of your mistakes. That weekend, I packed Derek's remaining belongings into boxes and left them on the front porch. I changed the locks and installed a security system. I also did something I had never done before in my life. I went to the bank and opened an account in only my name. The house felt different without Derek's things in it. Bigger somehow but also emptier. I walked through the rooms we had decorated together, trying to figure out how to make this place feel like mine instead of ours. The bedroom was the hardest. I couldn't sleep in the bed where I had found Derek and Bianca, so I bought a new one and had the old one donated to charity. At night, when the house was quiet, I would put my hands on my stomach and talk to my baby. It's just you and me, I would whisper. But that's okay. We're going to be fine. We're going to be better than fine. The worst part wasn't the loneliness or the fear. The worst part was my family. When I called to tell my parents about the divorce, my mother's first question wasn't, "Are you okay?" It was, "What did you do to push Derek away?" I didn't do anything, Mom. Derek was having an affair with Bianca. Simone, honey, affairs don't just happen in a vacuum. There's usually something wrong at home that drives a man to look elsewhere. Are you seriously blaming me for Derek cheating with my own sister? I'm not blaming anyone, my mother said, but her tone said otherwise. I'm just saying that maybe if you had tried harder to make Derek happy. I hung up on her. And when Bianca called an hour later, crying and begging me to understand that she and Derek were meant to be together, I blocked her number. My father called the next day. Simone, you need to forgive your sister. Family is more important than any man. Family? I laughed bitterly. Dad, she destroyed my marriage. She's having a baby with my husband. What part of that sounds like family to you? Bianca made a mistake, but she's still your sister. And Derek? Well, Derek is going to be the father of your grandchild. You need to find a way to work this out. Derek is also going to be the father of Bianca's child. Are you okay with that? My father was quiet for a long moment. These things happen, Simone. People's feelings change. You're young. You'll find someone else. I'm pregnant, Dad. I'm alone and pregnant, and my husband left me for my sister. And instead of supporting me, you're telling me to forgive them and move on. I'm telling you to be practical. Fighting with Derek won't change anything. And cutting off your sister will just leave you more alone. That's when I realized that I had been alone all along. My family had chosen sides and it wasn't mine. Derek had used me and thrown me away. But I wasn't the same woman who had walked into that bedroom 6 weeks ago. I was stronger now. I was angrier. And I was going to prove to all of them that they had made the biggest mistake of their lives. Moving to Atlanta was the hardest thing I had ever done, but it was also the most liberating. I sold the house Derek thought he would get in the divorce and used the money to start over in a city where nobody knew my story. Nobody knew about Derek or Bianca or the family that had abandoned me when I needed them most. I found a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood, close to a good hospital and a decent school for when the baby got older. It wasn't much, just 2 bedrooms and a tiny kitchen, but it was mine. Every morning I would wake up and remember that this was my space, my choice, my life. No one could take it away from me. The pregnancy was harder than I expected. Morning sickness lasted all day for the first few months, and I was so tired I could barely keep my eyes open at work. I had found a job as an administrative assistant at a marketing firm, and while it wasn't my dream job, it paid the bills and offered good health insurance. At night, when I was too tired to do anything else, I would sit in the nursery I was slowly putting together and plan for the future. I bought a crib from a second-hand store and painted it white. I hung pictures of animals on the walls and bought soft blankets in yellow and green since I had decided not to find out the baby's gender. I wanted at least one surprise in this whole mess. Derek called me every few weeks, usually late at night when I assumed Bianca was asleep. Simone, we need to talk about the baby. I want to be involved. You have another baby to worry about, I would tell him. Focus on that one. I can care about both children. I want to be a good father. Then you should have thought about that before you destroyed our marriage. How many times do I have to apologize? I made a mistake, but that doesn't mean I should lose my child. You didn't make a mistake, Derek. You made a choice. You chose Bianca over me and you chose her baby over mine. Now you get to live with that choice. The conversations always ended the same way, with Derek getting angry and threatening to take me to court for custody. Let him try, I thought. I had documented everything: his abandonment, his cruel words, his complete lack of interest in our child, until it became legally convenient. My lawyer had assured me that the courts would side with a mother who had been abandoned by her husband for another woman. When I was 7 months pregnant, I started having contractions at work. They weren't regular, but they were strong enough to take my breath away. My supervisor, Mrs. Chin, found me gripping the edge of my desk during one particularly bad one. "Simone, honey, you need to go to the hospital right now." "I'm fine," I said, even though I clearly wasn't. "It's probably just false labor. You're 7 months pregnant and you're having contractions at work. You're not fine. Come on, I'm driving you to the hospital myself." At the hospital, the doctors put me on bed rest for the remainder of my pregnancy. "Your blood pressure is too high," Dr. Williams explained. "And with the stress you've been under, we want to make sure this baby stays put until he's ready to be born." "He?" I asked. Dr. Williams smiled. "Did I say he? Well, I guess the cat's out of the bag. You're having a boy, Mrs. Patterson. A strong, healthy boy." "A boy?" "I was having a son." I put my hands on my stomach and felt him moving around as if he knew we were talking about him. "Hi, baby boy," I whispered. "I can't wait to meet you." The next 6 weeks passed slowly. I couldn't work, so money was tight, but my co-workers from the marketing firm took up a collection to help with my expenses. Mrs. Chin visited me twice a week, bringing groceries and keeping me company. I had never had friends like this before, people who cared about me without expecting anything in return. "You know," Mrs. Chin said one afternoon as we folded baby clothes together, "you're stronger than you think you are." "I don't feel strong," I admitted. "I feel scared and alone and completely unprepared to be a mother." "Every new mother feels that way. But you've already proven how strong you are. You left an unhappy marriage, moved to a new city, started over from scratch, and you're about to raise a child on your own. That takes incredible strength." "I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice, Simone. You could have stayed with Derek and tried to make it work. You could have forgiven your sister and kept the peace in your family. But you chose yourself and your baby instead. That's the choice of a strong woman." On a cold February morning, my water broke while I was making breakfast. I called Mrs. Chin, who drove me to the hospital while I tried not to panic in the passenger seat. The labor was long and difficult, but when they finally placed my son in my arms, everything else faded away. He was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, and a head full of dark hair just like mine. He had Derek's nose and chin, but his eyes were all mine, dark brown and curious, already looking around like he was trying to figure out this new world he had been born into. "What are you going to name him?" the nurse asked. I had been thinking about names for months, but now, looking at his little face, only one name felt right. "Isaiah," I said. "Isaiah Patterson." "That's a strong name for a strong boy," Dr. Williams said, checking Isaiah's reflexes. "He's healthy as a horse." "Good job, Mom." Mom. I was a mom now. The thought was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. This little person was depending on me for everything. I was his whole world and he was mine. That night, as I held Isaiah while he slept, I made him a promise. "I'm going to give you the best life I can," I whispered. "I'm going to work hard and save money and make sure you have everything you need. And I'm going to teach you to be better than your father. I'm going to teach you to keep your promises and treat people with respect and never, ever throw away something precious because you think you can find something better." Derek called the next morning. Someone, probably my mother, had told him about the birth. "Simone, I heard about the baby. I want to see him." "No," I said simply. "What do you mean no? He's my son too. You have a son with Bianca. Focus on him. I can have 2 sons, Simone. I want to be part of Isaiah's life." I looked down at my sleeping baby, at his perfect little face and tiny fingers wrapped around mine. "Then you should have thought about that 9 months ago when you chose Bianca over us. I'm coming to Atlanta. I'm going to see my son whether you like it or not. If you show up here, Derek, I'll call the police. You have no legal rights to this baby. You abandoned us, remember? The courts have very detailed records of exactly how you abandoned us." Derek was quiet for a long moment. "This isn't over, Simone." "Yes, it is," I said and hung up the phone. As I settled back into bed with Isaiah, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in almost a year. We were safe here. We were starting fresh. And whatever challenges lay ahead, I would face them head on. Because I wasn't just Simone anymore. I was Isaiah's mother. And that was the most important job I would ever have. 3 years passed like a blur of sleepless nights, first steps, and first words. Isaiah grew into a bright, curious little boy who looked more like Derek every day but had my stubborn streak and my love of cooking. He would stand on a little stool in our tiny kitchen, helping me mix ingredients and asking a million questions about everything. "Mama, why do we put salt in the cookies?" Salt is for vegetables. Because salt makes everything taste better, baby. Even sweet things need a little salt to make them perfect. Like how you make everything perfect? He asked, and my heart melted a little more. I had started a small catering business from our apartment, mostly doing birthday parties and small events for people at work. Word of mouth traveled fast in Atlanta, and soon I was getting calls from people I didn't even know. My chicken and waffles were legendary at the marketing firm, and my peach cobbler had become the requested dessert for every office party. The money was good, better than my old administrative job, and I loved the flexibility it gave me to spend time with Isaiah. I could work around his schedule, taking him with me to smaller events where the clients didn't mind having a well-behaved little boy charming their guests. "Simone, you need to think bigger," Mrs. Chin said one afternoon as she watched me prep for a wedding reception. "You're talented enough to have your own restaurant. Why are you limiting yourself to catering?" "Because restaurants require money I don't have," I said, piping frosting onto a 3-tier cake. "And they require taking risks I can't afford to take with Isaiah depending on me." "But what if you had investors? What if someone believed in you enough to help you take that risk?" I had been thinking about it, honestly. Late at night, after Isaiah was asleep, I would sketch out floor plans for my dream restaurant. I had it all planned: a cozy place that served Southern comfort food with a modern twist, somewhere families could come for Sunday dinner or couples could have a romantic date night. I even had a name picked out, Simone's Table. But wanting something and being able to achieve it were two different things. I was a single mother with no collateral and no business experience beyond my little catering operation. Banks weren't exactly lining up to give loans to people like me. Everything changed on a rainy Tuesday in October. I was catering a corporate lunch for a law firm downtown, serving my famous shrimp and grits to a room full of lawyers in expensive suits. Isaiah was at preschool, so I was working alone, which I preferred for these kinds of professional events. As I was packing up the empty serving dishes, a woman in an elegant gray suit approached me. She was probably in her 50s, with silver hair pulled back in a perfect bun and the kind of confidence that comes from years of success. "Excuse me, are you the chef?" "I'm the caterer," I said, wiping my hands on my apron. "Simone Patterson." "Elizabeth Montgomery," she said, extending her hand. "That was the best meal I've had in years." "Where did you train?" I felt my cheeks flush. "I didn't train anywhere formal. I just cook." "You just cook," she repeated like she couldn't believe it. "Honey, that wasn't just cooking. That was art. Do you have a restaurant?" "No, ma'am. Just catering for now." Elizabeth pulled a business card from her purse. "I'm a restaurant consultant. I help people with good food and big dreams turn those dreams into reality. Would you be interested in talking?" I looked at the card. Elizabeth Montgomery, Restaurant Development Specialist. "I don't have money for a consultant." "The consultation is free," Elizabeth said with a smile. "The first one anyway. What have you got to lose?" 2 weeks later, Elizabeth sat in my tiny apartment kitchen, eating my fried chicken and taking notes on a yellow legal pad. Isaiah was at the table too, carefully coloring in a coloring book and occasionally offering Elizabeth pieces of his crayon. "This is remarkable," Elizabeth said, gesturing with a drumstick. "You have a natural gift, Simone. But more than that, you have something most chefs never develop: you cook with love. People can taste that." "Thank you," I said, though I still wasn't sure what she wanted from me. "I want to help you open a restaurant," Elizabeth said directly. "I have investors who are looking for exactly what you have: authentic, delicious food and a compelling story. They're particularly interested in supporting minority women entrepreneurs." My heart started racing. What kind of investors? Good people with money who want to do good things with it. They're not looking to take over your vision or change what you do. They want to help you do it bigger and better. And what would they want in return? A percentage of the profits, eventually. But first, they want to see a business plan. They want to know you're serious about this and that you understand what you're getting into. I looked around my tiny kitchen, at the industrial mixer I had bought secondhand and the mismatched pots and pans I had collected over the years. Then I looked at Isaiah, who was listening to every word even though he was pretending to color. "What do you think, baby?" I asked him. "Should Mama open a restaurant?" Isaiah looked up from his coloring book with those serious brown eyes that reminded me so much of my own. "Will there be room for me to help?" "There will always be room for you to help," I promised. "Then yes," he said solemnly. "You should do it, Mama. You make the best food in the whole world." Elizabeth laughed. I couldn't have said it better myself. "So, Simone, what do you say? Are you ready to take the leap?" I thought about Derek, who had called me stupid and worthless. I thought about my family, who had chosen my sister over me. I thought about all the people who had counted me out before I even had a chance to prove myself. Yes, I said, and the word felt like a door opening. I'm ready. The next 6 months were a whirlwind of business plans, location scouting, and menu development. Elizabeth introduced me to her investors, a group of successful business people who believed in giving opportunities to talented entrepreneurs who might not otherwise get them. They were tough but fair, asking detailed questions about everything from food costs to marketing strategies. The location we found was perfect, a former bistro in a trendy part of town that had closed down due to poor management. It had good bones and a fully equipped kitchen that just needed some updating. More importantly, it had the kind of warm, welcoming atmosphere I had always envisioned for Simone's table. Opening night was terrifying and magical at the same time. I stood in the kitchen, wearing the chef's coat Elizabeth had given me as a good luck gift, watching the dining room fill up with customers. Isaiah sat at the bar, wearing a little apron that matched mine, greeting guests and telling anyone who would listen that his mama was the best cook in Atlanta. By the end of the night, we had served over 200 people. The local food critic had come and loved everything. 3 different food bloggers had posted glowing reviews online. And I had proven to myself that I could do something I had only dreamed about 3 years earlier. As I locked up the restaurant that first night, Isaiah asleep in my arms, I thought about how far we had come. From that broken woman who had found her husband in bed with her sister to a successful restaurant owner with a bright future ahead of her. Derek had been wrong about everything. I wasn't stupid or worthless. I was strong and talented and capable of building something beautiful from nothing. And the best part was, this was just the beginning. Simone's table had been open for 8 months when the call came in. I was in the kitchen, prepping for the lunch rush, when my hostess knocked on the door frame. Simone, there's a man here who says he wants to discuss a potential business investment. He doesn't have an appointment, but he seems pretty important. I wiped my hands on my apron, checking the clock. It was 10:30 a.m., still an hour before we opened for lunch. Did he give you a name? Derek something. Derek Patterson? The whisk I was holding clattered to the floor. Derek, here. After almost 4 years of silence, my ex-husband was standing in my restaurant. My heart started racing, but not from excitement, from pure, cold panic. Tell him I'm busy, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. He said he's willing to wait. He seems really determined to talk to you. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. This was my restaurant. My space. My success. Derek couldn't hurt me here. Fine. Give me 5 minutes, then send him back to my office. Those 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. I changed out of my kitchen apron and into the blazer I kept in my office for important meetings. I checked my makeup in the small mirror I kept on my desk and reminded myself that I was not the same broken woman Derek had left 4 years ago. I was successful now. I was strong. I was in control. When Derek walked into my office, I almost didn't recognize him. He had lost weight, and his expensive suit couldn't hide the tired lines around his eyes or the way his shoulders seemed to carry invisible weight. He looked older, worn down in a way that expensive clothes couldn't fix. Simone, he said, stopping just inside the doorway. You look incredible. Thank you, I said coolly, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. Please sit. I understand you're interested in discussing a business investment. Derek sat down slowly, his eyes moving around my office. I had decorated it simply but elegantly, framed reviews from food magazines, pictures of the restaurant's opening night, a small bookshelf filled with cookbooks and business journals. It was the office of someone who had built something real and lasting. I had no idea this was your restaurant, Derek said. When my business partner suggested we look into investing in local establishments, I never imagined that the worthless secretary you divorced would own one of the most successful restaurants in Atlanta? I finished for him. Derek flinched. I never said you were worthless. You said I was stupid. You said I could never give you a real family. You said I was nothing but a secretary in a cubicle who went home to watch reality TV. Should I continue? I was angry and hurt. People say things they don't mean when they're emotional. No, Derek. People say things they mean when they think they can get away with it. When they think the other person is too weak to fight back. Derek was quiet for a moment, studying my face like he was seeing me for the first time. You've changed. Yes, I have. Success has a way of changing people. So does being abandoned by everyone you trusted. Simone, I know you have every right to hate me. I know I made mistakes. Mistakes. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Cheating on your pregnant wife with her own sister isn't a mistake, Derek. It's a choice. A series of choices, actually. You're right, he said quietly. It was a choice. and it was the wrong choice. I've regretted it every day for the past 4 years. Before I could respond, there was a knock on my office door. Mama? Isaiah's voice called from the other side. Mrs. Rodriguez said you were in a meeting, but I finished my homework and I'm hungry. My blood turned to ice. Isaiah was here for lunch like he was every day after preschool. Mrs. Rodriguez, my assistant manager, usually kept him busy in the main dining room until I was free, but apparently he had gotten impatient. "One moment, baby," I called, but it was too late. The door was already opening and my 4-year-old son was walking into my office with his backpack still on his shoulders and his hair slightly messy from playing outside. Derek's face went completely white when he saw Isaiah. I watched in slow motion as recognition dawned in his eyes. Isaiah had Derek's nose, Derek's chin, and Derek's dark hair. But more than that, he looked exactly like Derek had as a child. I had seen enough old family photos to know. "Isaiah, sweetheart, I'm in a meeting right now," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Can you wait for me in the dining room? Mrs. Rodriguez will get you some mac and cheese." But Isaiah had noticed Derek staring at him, and being a naturally curious child, he was staring back. "Who's that, Mama?" "Just a business associate," I said quickly. "We're discussing restaurant investments." Derek stood up slowly like he was moving through water. This is my son." "Excuse me?" I said, my voice deadly quiet. "He looks exactly like I did at that age. This is my son. This is Isaiah." Isaiah looked between Derek and me, sensing the tension in the room even if he didn't understand it. "Mama, who is this man? Why does he know my name?" I moved around my desk to stand between Derek and Isaiah, my protective instincts kicking in. "Isaiah, go find Mrs. Rodriguez right now. Tell her Mama will be out in just a few minutes." "But, right now, baby. Please." Isaiah looked like he wanted to argue, but something in my tone must have convinced him this was serious. He backed toward the door, his eyes still on Derek. "Okay, Mama. But I want extra cheese on my mac and cheese." "You'll get extra cheese," I promised. "I love you." "Love you too," Isaiah said and disappeared down the hallway. As soon as he was gone, Derek sank back into his chair like all the air had gone out of him. "He's beautiful, Simone. He's perfect. He's none of your business. He's my son." "Your son?" I stood over him, fury radiating from every inch of my body. "Where were you when I was throwing up every morning for 3 months? Where were you when I was on bed rest, scared and alone? Where were you when I was in labor for 18 hours with no one to hold my hand? Where were you for his first steps, his first words, his first day of preschool? I didn't know. You didn't want to know. I tried to tell you I was pregnant, and you served me with divorce papers. You said I could never give you a real family. Well, congratulations, Derek. You were right. I couldn't give you a real family. But I gave myself one." Derek put his head in his hands. "I've made such a mess of everything. What do you want, Derek? What are you really doing here?" He looked up at me, and for the first time since he had walked into my office, he looked like the man I had once loved. Vulnerable and lost and desperate for something he couldn't name. "My marriage to Bianca fell apart," he said quietly. "She left me 6 months ago. Took our daughter and moved to California with some guy she met online." I felt a moment of vindication, followed immediately by guilt for feeling vindicated. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" "I'm sorry for your daughter. Children shouldn't have to suffer because their parents make bad choices." Derek nodded slowly. "You're a better person than I am, Simone. You always were. What do you want?" I repeated. "I want to be part of Isaiah's life. I want to be the father I should have been from the beginning." "No. Simone, please. I know I don't deserve it, but he's my son. He deserves to have a father. He deserves to have a father who chose him. You didn't choose him, Derek. You chose Bianca and her baby over us. You don't get to change your mind now just because your other family didn't work out." "I've changed. Have you? Or are you just lonely and looking for something to fill the void Bianca left behind?" Derek was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Maybe both. But that doesn't mean I don't love him. From the moment I saw him, I felt something I've never felt before. That's called regret, Derek. It's not the same thing as love. Let me prove it to you. Let me prove that I can be the father he needs." I looked at this man who had once been my whole world, who had destroyed me so completely that I had to rebuild myself from scratch. He looked broken now, humbled in a way that the old Derek never would have been. But broken people could still cause damage. Desperate people made desperate choices. "No," I said again. "I won't let you hurt him the way you hurt me. I would never hurt him. You hurt him the day you abandoned him. You hurt him every day you chose not to be part of his life. And you'll hurt him again when you get bored or find someone new or decide that being a father is harder than you thought it would be. Derek stood up, his composure finally cracking. You can't keep me from my son forever, Simone. I have rights. No, Derek. You gave up your rights when you chose another woman over your pregnant wife. You gave up your rights when you called me stupid and worthless. You gave up your rights when you walked away. I'll fight you on this. I'll take you to court if I have to. I smiled and there was no warmth in it. Go ahead. Try explaining to a judge why you suddenly want custody of a child you've ignored for 4 years. Try explaining why you abandoned your pregnant wife for her sister. Try explaining why you deserve another chance when you threw away the first one. Derek stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him realizing that the scared, broken woman he had left behind was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who wouldn't be intimidated or manipulated. This isn't over, he said finally. Yes, I said, walking to my office door and opening it. It is. After Derek left, I sat alone in my office for a long time, my hands shaking with adrenaline and old pain. Through my window, I could see the dining room where Isaiah was sitting at his favorite table, eating mac and cheese with extra cheese and chatting happily with Mrs. Rodriguez. He looked so innocent, so unaware that his entire world had just shifted on its axis. For 4 years, it had been just the two of us against the world. Now Derek knew about him, and I had a terrible feeling that our peaceful life was about to become very complicated. But as I watched my son laugh at something Mrs. Rodriguez had said, I made myself a promise. I had built this life from nothing. I had created success and stability and love out of heartbreak and betrayal. And I would do whatever it took to protect it. Derek had hurt me once, but I wouldn't let him hurt Isaiah. Not now, not ever. Whatever came next, I was ready for it. The private investigator's report arrived on a Wednesday morning, delivered to Derek's downtown law office in a plain manila envelope. He had hired the man 3 weeks earlier, right after seeing Isaiah at the restaurant, and now the proof was sitting on his desk in black and white. DNA match. 99.7% probability of paternity. Derek stared at the papers until the numbers blurred together. He had known, of course, the moment he saw Isaiah's face. The boy looked exactly like Derek had at that age, same dark hair, same stubborn chin, same way of tilting his head when he was thinking. But seeing it confirmed in clinical, scientific terms made it real in a way that twisted something deep in his chest. He had a son. A beautiful, bright 4-year-old son who didn't know he existed. Derek's phone buzzed with a text from his business partner. How did the restaurant meeting go? Think it's worth investing in? The meeting. Derek had almost forgotten the original reason for visiting Simone's table. He had been looking for local businesses to invest in, opportunities to expand his portfolio and rebuild his reputation after the disaster of his personal life. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had been looking for a good investment, and instead he had found the child he had thrown away. His office door opened without a knock, and his secretary poked her head in. Mr. Patterson? Your 11 o'clock is here. Derek quickly shoved the investigator's report into his desk drawer. Send them in. But as he tried to focus on contracts and depositions for the rest of the day, all he could think about was Isaiah. The way the boy had looked at him with curious brown eyes, Simone's eyes. The way he had called Simone Mama, with such complete trust and love. The way he had seemed so confident and happy, like a child who had never doubted for a moment that he was wanted and cherished. That night, Derek drove past Simone's restaurant again, even though he knew it was closed. The building was dark except for a small light in what he assumed was Simone's office. He wondered if she was there, working late to build the success she had achieved without him. Working to provide for the son he should have been helping to raise. His phone rang, interrupting his brooding. The caller ID showed his mother's number. Derek, honey, how are you holding up? I'm fine, Mom. No, you're not. I can hear it in your voice. You've been different ever since Bianca left. More. I don't know. Distant. Derek almost laughed. His mother had always been perceptive, but she had no idea how distant he really was. I'm just tired. Work is busy. You know, I was thinking about Simone the other day. I always liked her. She was such a sweet girl, and she made you happy in a way that Bianca never did. Derek's grip tightened on the phone. His mother had never approved of his relationship with Bianca, though she had been too polite to say so directly. Mom, Simone and I are divorced. That's ancient history. I know, but... Derek, can I ask you something? Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had tried harder to make your marriage work? Every day Derek thought. Especially now. There's no point in wondering about the past. Isn't there? You're only 32 years old, Derek. You have your whole life ahead of you. Maybe it's time to stop running from your mistakes and start trying to fix them. After he hung up, Derek sat in his car outside Simone's restaurant for another hour, thinking about his mother's words. He had spent the last 4 years telling himself that leaving Simone had been the right choice, that he and Bianca had been meant to be together. But if that was true, why had their marriage fallen apart so spectacularly? Why had Bianca taken their daughter and run off with another man the moment things got difficult? The truth was, Derek had never loved Bianca the way he had loved Simone. Bianca had been exciting and forbidden, the kind of dangerous thrill that made him feel alive. But Simone had been home. Simone had been safety and warmth and the kind of steady love that built a life instead of just burning bright and fast. And he had thrown it all away for what? A few years of passion that had burned out as quickly as it had started? A daughter who barely knew him because Bianca had made it clear from the beginning that she came first in everything? Derek pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he found Simone's number. He had kept it all these years even though he had never called. His finger hovered over the call button for a long moment before he finally pressed it. The phone rang 4 times before Simone's voice answered, cautious and professional. Hello? Simone, it's Derek. Please don't hang up. There was a long pause. What do you want, Derek? It's late. I want to talk. About Isaiah. About us. About everything. There is no us. There hasn't been an us for 4 years. I know. I know I screwed everything up. But I need you to understand something. I never stopped loving you. Simone's laugh was sharp and bitter. You have a funny way of showing love. I was young and stupid and I thought the grass was greener somewhere else. But I was wrong, Simone. About everything. Derek, I don't have time for this. I have a restaurant to run and a child to raise. I don't have time to help you work through your midlife crisis. This isn't a midlife crisis. This is me finally being honest about the biggest mistake I ever made. The biggest mistake you ever made was cheating on your wife with her sister. Everything else was just consequences. Derek closed his eyes, leaning his head against the steering wheel. You're right. But that doesn't mean I can't try to make it right now. You can't make it right, Derek. Some things can't be fixed. Some things, once they're broken, stay broken. What about Isaiah? Don't I deserve a chance to know my son? You had a chance to know your son. You had 9 months to step up and be a father. You chose not to. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. There's a difference. Derek was quiet for a moment, knowing she was right but not wanting to admit it. Simone, I've seen the DNA test results. Isaiah is my son. Legally, I have rights. Legally, you abandoned your parental rights when you walked away from your pregnant wife. My lawyer explained that to you 4 years ago, remember? Courts can change their minds. Especially when a father wants to be involved in his child's life. A father? Derek, you're not a father. You're a sperm donor who suddenly got curious about his genetic contribution. Being a father means being there for the 3 a.m. feedings and the doctor's appointments and the first day of school. It means choosing your child over everything else, every single day. It means sacrifice and commitment and unconditional love. You've never done any of those things. Her words hit him like physical blows, mostly because they were true. He had never even tried to be a father to Isaiah. He had been too busy playing house with Bianca and their daughter to think about the child he had left behind. Let me try now, he said quietly. Let me prove that I can be the father he deserves. No. Simone. No, Derek. I've built a good life for Isaiah. He's happy and secure and loved. I won't let you come in and disrupt that just because you're finally having regrets. He deserves to know who his father is. His father is the man who will walk him down the aisle at his wedding someday. His father is the man who will teach him how to throw a baseball and help him with his homework and be there when he's scared or hurt or confused. That man isn't you. The line went quiet except for the sound of both of them breathing. Derek wanted to argue, wanted to demand his rights as a biological parent, wanted to threaten legal action like he had at the restaurant. But something in Simone's voice stopped him. She wasn't the broken woman he had left 4 years ago. She was stronger now, more confident, more sure of herself. And she was protecting their son with a fierceness that was both intimidating and deeply attractive. I loved you, Simone, he said finally. I still love you. No, Derek. You love the idea of me. You love the fantasy of the perfect family you think you can create now that your real life has fallen apart. But you don't love me. If you loved me, you never would have hurt me the way you did. People can change. Some people can. But not you. You're still the same man who threw away his family for a prettier option. You're still the man who called his pregnant wife stupid and worthless. The only difference is that now you're lonely and looking for something to fill the void. Derek wanted to argue, but the words died in his throat. Because maybe she was right. Maybe he was just looking for something to ease the guilt and loneliness that had been eating at him since Bianca left. Maybe he didn't really want to be a father, maybe he just wanted to feel like less of a failure as a man. I won't stop trying, he said eventually. Isaiah is my son and I won't give up on him. Then you'll be disappointed, Simone said. Because I'll never stop protecting him. From you or anyone else who might hurt him. After she hung up, Derek sat in his car for another hour, staring at the dark restaurant where his ex-wife had built something beautiful without him. Where his son spent his afternoons, happy and loved and completely unaware that his biological father was watching from the parking lot like some kind of stalker. Derek had thought that finding Isaiah would give him purpose, maybe even a chance to win Simone back. But now he was starting to realize that he might have lost them both forever. And for the first time in 4 years he was beginning to understand exactly what that loss truly meant. Derek's lawyer, Richard Sterling, was the kind of man who charged $600 an hour and looked like he was worth every penny. His downtown office overlooked the city skyline, and his desk was massive enough to land a small plane on. When Derek walked in carrying the DNA test results and a file folder full of photographs he had taken of Isaiah from across the street, Sterling barely looked up from the legal brief he was reviewing. Derek, what can I do for you today? More problems with the Bianca situation? No, this is about something else. Something more important. Derek sat down and slid the DNA results across the desk. I need to file for custody rights. Sterling picked up the papers and read them quickly, his expression not changing. 99.7% probability of paternity. Who's the mother? My ex-wife, Simone. That got Sterling's attention. He looked up with raised eyebrows. Your ex-wife? The one you divorced to marry Bianca? Yes. And you're just now finding out about this child? Derek shifted uncomfortably in his chair. It's complicated. Sterling leaned back in his leather chair, studying Derek with the sharp eyes that had made him one of the most successful family lawyers in Atlanta. Derek, I need you to be completely honest with me. Did you know Simone was pregnant when you divorced her? There was some indication that she might be, but did you know or didn't you? Derek looked out the window at the city below, remembering that terrible day in court when Simone had announced her pregnancy like a bomb going off in the middle of his carefully planned new life. Yes, I knew. And you chose not to pursue custody or visitation at that time? I was starting a new family with Bianca. I thought it would be better for everyone if I focused on that. Sterling set the papers down and leaned forward. Derek, I'm going to give you some free advice. Walk away from this. What? You voluntarily relinquished any claim to this child 4 years ago. You haven't paid child support, you haven't attempted visitation, you haven't even tried to maintain contact. In the eyes of the law, you're a stranger to this child. But I'm his biological father. Biology doesn't make you a father, Derek. Behavior does. And your behavior for the past 4 years has been that of a man who wanted nothing to do with this child. Derek felt his temper rising. That was different. I was in a different place in my life then. And what's changed? Besides the fact that your marriage to Bianca fell apart and you're looking for something to fill the void. The words stung because they were so close to what Simone had said. I want to be a father to my son. Is that so wrong? Sterling pulled out a yellow legal pad and started making notes. Derek, let me explain what would happen if we actually tried to pursue this case. First, we'd have to prove that it's in the child's best interest to have a relationship with you. Given that he's been thriving without you for 4 years, that's going to be difficult. But he's my son. Second, we'd have to address the abandonment issue. A judge is going to want to know why you suddenly care about this child after ignoring him for his entire life. They're going to look at your pattern of behavior, leaving your pregnant wife for another woman, starting a new family while abandoning your first child, and now showing up only after your second marriage failed. Derek was quiet, staring at his hands. Third, Sterling continued, we'd have to deal with the mother's objections. From what you've told me, Simone is successful, stable, and has provided a good home for this child. She's going to fight any attempt at forced visitation, and frankly, she'd probably win. So you're saying I have no rights at all? I'm saying you gave up your rights when you walked away. The law generally doesn't give you a second chance just because you've changed your mind. Derek stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the busy street below. Somewhere in this city, Isaiah was probably at preschool, learning his letters and making friends and having no idea that his biological father was trying to figure out how to insert himself into his life. What if I could prove that I've changed? What if I could show that I'm ready to be a responsible father? Sterling made more notes on his pad. It would be an uphill battle. And expensive. We're talking about months, maybe years of legal proceedings. Court-appointed psychologists to evaluate everyone involved. Character witnesses. Financial records. And at the end of it all, you might get supervised visitation once a month. Once a month. If you're lucky. Derek, this child doesn't know you. For all practical purposes, you're a stranger who happens to share his DNA. The court isn't going to disrupt his stable home life just to satisfy your sudden desire to play daddy. Derek turned away from the window, his jaw set with determination. I want to try anyway. Sterling sighed and set down his pen. Derek, as your lawyer and your friend, I'm advising you to let this go. You made your choice 4 years ago. Live with it. And as my lawyer who charges me $600 an hour, what would you advise? If you're determined to pursue this, we'd start with a petition for paternity and visitation rights. We'd argue that you were young and confused when you made the decision to step away, and that you're now ready to be a responsible father. We'd emphasize your successful law practice and financial stability. And what are our chances? Sterling was quiet for a long moment. Honestly? Maybe 20%. And that's being generous. Despite the low odds, Derek found himself nodding. Let's do it. Meanwhile, across town at Simone's table, Simone was having her own meeting with her lawyer. Patricia Rodriguez sat across from Simone in the restaurant's small office, reviewing the papers Derek's attorney had just filed. He's asking for paternity testing and visitation rights, Patricia said, looking up from the documents. Standard opening move for an absent father trying to establish custody. Simone felt her stomach clench. What does this mean for Isaiah? Right now it doesn't mean anything. Derek has to prove paternity first, which shouldn't be hard given how much Isaiah looks like him. But proving paternity and getting visitation are two different things. Can he force me to let him see Isaiah? He can try. But Simone, you have something very powerful in your favor: 4 years of documented abandonment. Derek walked away from his pregnant wife, never attempted contact, never paid child support, and never showed any interest in this child until now. That's going to be very difficult for him to overcome. Simone looked out the office window at the dining room, where Isaiah was sitting at his usual table doing homework while one of the waitresses helped him with his math. He looked so small and innocent, completely unaware that his world might be about to change. What should I do? Fight, Patricia said simply. Fight with everything you have. This isn't about Derek's rights as a biological parent. This is about Isaiah's right to stability and security. You've given him that. Derek hasn't. But what if the judge thinks Isaiah needs a father figure? Patricia smiled grimly. Then we make sure the judge understands that being a father is about more than just genetics. We document every day Derek missed, every milestone he wasn't there for, every choice he made that put his own desires ahead of his child's needs. How long will this take? Months probably. Maybe longer if Derek's lawyer drags it out. But Simone, I want you to know something: you're not the same scared young woman who walked into my office 4 years ago asking for help with a divorce. You're successful now. You're stable. You've built a good life for yourself and your son. That's going to count for a lot in court. That evening, after the restaurant closed and Isaiah was asleep, Simone sat in her living room going through old photo albums. Pictures of Isaiah's first steps, his first birthday, his first day of preschool. Derek wasn't in any of them because Derek hadn't been there. For 4 years, it had been just her and Isaiah building a life together one day at a time. She thought about Derek's phone call, about his claim that he still loved her. But love wasn't a feeling you could turn on and off when it was convenient. Love was showing up even when it was hard. Love was staying even when you wanted to run. Love was choosing someone every day, not just when you had no other options. Derek had never learned that lesson. And now he wanted to come back into their lives, not because he loved them, but because he was lonely and looking for something to ease his guilt. Simone closed the photo albums and made herself a promise. She would fight Derek with everything she had. Not out of spite or revenge, but out of love for her son. Isaiah deserved better than a part-time father who might disappear again the moment something more interesting came along. She had built this life from nothing once before. She had to do it again, she would. But this time she wouldn't be building alone. This time she had Isaiah to protect. And she would move heaven and earth to keep him safe. The courtroom was smaller than Simone had expected, with pale yellow walls and fluorescent lighting that made everyone look slightly sick. She sat next to Patricia, her hands folded tightly in her lap, watching Derek and his expensive lawyer shuffle through papers at the table across the aisle. Derek kept glancing at her, but she refused to meet his eyes. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Catherine Williams," the bailiff announced. Judge Williams was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She settled into her chair and opened the file in front of her. "This is a petition for paternity and visitation rights filed by Derek Patterson regarding the minor child Isaiah Patterson. Is the petitioner present?" Derek stood up. "Yes, Your Honor." "And the respondent?" Simone rose on shaking legs. "Yes, Your Honor." "Please be seated. I've reviewed the initial filings and I have to say, this is an unusual case. Mr. Patterson, you're seeking visitation rights for a child you've had no contact with for his entire 4-year life. Can you explain this to the court?" Derek's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, my client was young and confused when this child was born. He was dealing with the end of his marriage and the beginning of a new relationship. He made the mistake of stepping away, but he's now ready to be a responsible father." "I see." "And during these 4 years of being confused, did Mr. Patterson make any attempt to contact his son? Any attempt to provide financial support? Any attempt to establish a relationship?" Derek's lawyer looked uncomfortable. "No, Your Honor, he did not." "And what has changed that makes Mr. Patterson suddenly interested in fatherhood?" "My client has matured, Your Honor. His second marriage has ended, and he's realized the importance of being a father to his biological son." Judge Williams looked over her glasses at Derek. "Mr. Patterson, is it true that your second marriage ended because your wife left you for another man?" Derek's face flushed red. "Yes, Your Honor, but I don't see how that's relevant." "It's relevant because it suggests that your sudden interest in this child might be motivated by loneliness rather than genuine parental concern." The judge looked at her notes. "Mrs. Patterson, how has this petition affected you and your son?" Patricia nudged Simone to stand. "Your Honor, my client has built a stable, loving home for her son. Isaiah is thriving academically and socially. He has never known his biological father and has no memory of Mr. Patterson. This petition has caused significant stress and uncertainty in what was previously a stable family situation. Has the child asked about his father?" Simone's voice was barely above a whisper. "No, Your Honor. He's never asked." "And how have you explained his father's absence?" "I've told him that his daddy wasn't ready to be a parent, but that it had nothing to do with him. I've told him that some people aren't meant to be parents, and that's okay because he has me and I love him enough for both of us." Judge Williams nodded. "Mr. Patterson, stand up." Derek rose, looking nervous for the first time since the proceedings began. "In 4 years you haven't sent this child so much as a birthday card. You haven't contributed a single dollar to his support. You haven't attended a single doctor's appointment, school event, or milestone. What makes you think you deserve to be part of his life now?" "Your Honor, I made mistakes, but—" "Mistakes?" Judge Williams's voice was sharp. "Mr. Patterson, abandoning your pregnant wife for her sister isn't a mistake. It's a choice. Not supporting your child for 4 years isn't a mistake. It's a pattern of behavior. What evidence can you present that you've actually changed?" Derek's lawyer shuffled through his papers. "Your Honor, my client has a successful law practice. He's financially stable and able to provide for the child. Money isn't what makes a father, counselor. What evidence of emotional growth? Of commitment? Of putting this child's needs before his own desires?" Derek's lawyer was quiet, clearly struggling to find an answer. "Mrs. Patterson," the judge continued, "I'd like to hear your perspective on what's best for your son." Simone stood again, her voice stronger this time. "Your Honor, Isaiah is a happy, secure child. He has a routine, friends at school, and a support system of people who love him. Introducing a stranger who claims to be his father would only confuse and upset him. Mr. Patterson has shown no interest in gradually building a relationship or earning his place in Isaiah's life. He's demanding immediate access to a child he's never bothered to know." "Your Honor," Derek's lawyer interjected, "my client has rights as the biological father. Biological fathers who abandon their children don't have the same rights as fathers who actually parent their children," Judge Williams said firmly. "Mr. Patterson forfeited his rights when he walked away from his pregnant wife and never looked back." Derek suddenly stood up, his face red with frustration. "Your Honor, I know I made mistakes, but I love my son. I want to be part of his life. Doesn't that count for something?" "Mr. Patterson, love is not a feeling. Love is an action. It's showing up when it's inconvenient. It's putting your child's needs before your own wants. It's being there for the hard days, not just the easy ones. Can you honestly tell this court that you love a child you've never bothered to know? Derek opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again. The courtroom was silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioning. Judge Williams closed the file and removed her glasses. Mr. Patterson, I'm denying your petition for visitation rights. The court finds that granting such rights would not be in the best interest of the child. Isaiah Patterson has thrived without your presence for 4 years. There is no evidence that introducing you into his life would benefit him in any way. Derek's lawyer jumped up. Your Honor, we'd like to appeal. You're welcome to appeal, counselor, but I doubt you'll find a higher court that disagrees with my assessment. Mr. Patterson, if you're serious about being a father, I suggest you start with smaller steps. Perhaps sending birthday cards. Perhaps contributing to your son's support without being court-ordered to do so. Perhaps demonstrating over time that you're capable of putting his needs before your own desires. After the judge left, Derek turned to Simone with desperation in his eyes. Simone, please, can't we work something out? Can't I at least meet him? Simone looked at this man who had once been her everything and felt nothing but sadness. Derek, you had 4 years to meet him. You chose not to. I'm choosing to now. No, you're not choosing him. You're choosing to ease your own guilt and loneliness. There's a difference. Derek's composure finally cracked completely. I know I screwed up, okay? I know I made the worst mistake of my life. But I can't change the past. All I can do is try to make the future better. The future would be better if you left us alone, Simone said quietly. Isaiah is happy, Derek. He's loved and secure and thriving. Why would you want to disrupt that just to make yourself feel better? Because he's my son. No, Simone said, gathering her purse and standing to leave. He's my son. You're just the man who helped create him. There's a difference. As Simone walked out of the courtroom, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders that she hadn't even realized she was carrying. The legal battle was over. Derek had lost, and more importantly, Isaiah was safe. She had protected her son from a man who saw him as a possession rather than a person, who wanted to claim him without earning him. Outside the courthouse, Patricia put a hand on Simone's shoulder. You did good in there. You protected your son. It doesn't feel like a victory, Simone said. It just feels sad. Sometimes doing the right thing feels sad. But you chose Isaiah's well-being over Derek's feelings, and that's what a real parent does. That evening, Simone sat with Isaiah on their couch, reading his favorite bedtime story for the 3rd time. He was snuggled against her side, his thumb in his mouth even though he was getting too old for that habit. Mama, he said sleepily. Yes, baby? I love you. I love you too, Isaiah. More than anything in the whole world. Will you always protect me? Simone kissed the top of his head, breathing in the sweet scent of his baby shampoo. Always, sweetheart. I will always protect you. And as she held her son close, Simone knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she had made the right choice. She had chosen love over biology, protection over reconciliation, and her son's future over Derek's regrets. It might have been sad, but it was right. And sometimes that was enough. 2 years had passed since the courthouse confrontation, and Simone's table had become one of Atlanta's most celebrated restaurants. The James Beard Foundation had nominated Simone for Outstanding Chef, and Food and Wine magazine had featured her restaurant on their cover with the headline From Heartbreak to Hope, How One Woman Cooked Her Way to Success. Simone stood in her expanded kitchen, now twice the size of the original, directing a team of 12 cooks as they prepared for the evening rush. The restaurant was booked solid for the next 3 months, and she had just signed a deal to open 2 more locations in Charleston and Nashville. Chef Simone, her sous chef called from the prep station. The food blogger from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is here for the 6 o'clock interview. Tell her I'll be right there, Simone said, wiping her hands on her apron. She had learned to balance her role as head chef with the business side of running a restaurant empire, but some days it felt like she needed to be 3 people at once. As she walked through the dining room toward the table where the food blogger waited, Simone's eyes found Isaiah automatically. He was 6 now, sitting at the bar doing homework while chatting with Jerome, her business partner and boyfriend of 8 months. Jerome was helping Isaiah with his math problems, his patience endless as he explained addition for the 4th time. So if you have 5 apples and someone gives you 3 more apples, how many apples do you have total? Jerome asked. 8. Isaiah said proudly. But Jerome, why would someone give me 3 apples? That's a lot of apples for one kid. Jerome laughed, the sound warm and genuine. Maybe they really like you. Maybe they think you're the best kid in the whole world. Mama says I'm the best kid in the whole world too, Isaiah said matter-of-factly. But she's my mama, so she has to say that. You don't have to say that because you're not my daddy. Simone felt her heart skip a beat, but Jerome handled the comment with the grace he brought to everything. You're right, I don't have to say it. But I say it because it's true. You are pretty amazing, little man. Isaiah beamed and went back to his math problems, completely unaware of the emotional weight of what he had just said. Jerome looked up and caught Simone's eye, giving her a small smile that was both understanding and reassuring. The interview went well. The food blogger, a woman named Jennifer Hayes, was genuinely interested in Simone's story and asked thoughtful questions about her journey from divorced single mother to successful restaurateur. What would you say to other women who find themselves starting over after a devastating personal setback? Jennifer asked. Simone thought for a moment, looking around at the bustling restaurant she had built from nothing. I'd say that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. When my life fell apart, I thought it was the end of the world. But it was actually the beginning of the life I was meant to live. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if your ex-husband hadn't left? No, Simone said without hesitation. If Derek hadn't left, I would never have discovered my own strength. I would never have built this restaurant. I would never have become the woman I am today. So in a way, I'm grateful he left. He did me the biggest favor of my life by showing me I didn't need him. After the interview, Simone joined Jerome and Isaiah at the bar. Isaiah had finished his homework and was now drawing pictures of the restaurant's signature dishes with the crayons Jerome always kept behind the bar for him. How did the interview go? Jerome asked, sliding a glass of wine across the bar to her. Good. She wants to do a follow-up piece about the expansion plans. Simone took a sip of wine and felt some of the day's tension leave her shoulders. What are you two up to? Jerome is teaching me how to make a milkshake, Isaiah said, not looking up from his drawing. But first I have to finish this picture of your mac and cheese for the refrigerator at home. Simone smiled. Their refrigerator at home was covered with Isaiah's artwork, most of it depicting scenes from the restaurant. He drew the kitchen, the dining room, the customers, and especially Jerome, who had become a fixture in their lives over the past 8 months. Jerome was everything Derek had never been: steady, kind, genuinely interested in Isaiah's thoughts and feelings. He had been coming to the restaurant as a customer for over a year before he approached Simone about a business partnership. His background was in restaurant management and franchising, and he had helped her navigate the expansion that was making her wealthy beyond her wildest dreams. Their romantic relationship had developed slowly, carefully, with Isaiah's well-being always at the center of every decision. Jerome had never pushed for more than Simone was ready to give, and he had earned Isaiah's trust through consistency and genuine affection rather than trying to buy his way in with gifts or grand gestures. Mama, Isaiah said, holding up his finished drawing, do you think Jerome should move in with us? Simone nearly choked on her wine. Isaiah, where did that come from? Well, he's here every day anyway. And he knows how to make pancakes that don't burn. And he's really good at fixing the broken things in our apartment. Jerome was trying not to laugh. Isaiah, that's something your mama and I would need to talk about together. It's a big decision. But you like us, right? And we like you. So why wouldn't you want to live with us? It's not about wanting to, Jerome said gently. It's about making sure it's the right thing for everyone. Sometimes adults need more time to make big decisions than kids do. Grown-ups are weird, Isaiah declared and went back to his drawing. That night, after Isaiah was asleep, Simone and Jerome sat on her apartment balcony sharing a bottle of wine and talking about the day. It had become their routine after the restaurant closed. They would come back to her place and decompress together. He's getting attached to you, Simone said quietly. I'm getting attached to him too. Is that a problem? Simone was quiet for a moment. I just don't want him to get hurt if this doesn't work out. Jerome set down his wine glass and turned to face her. Simone, what would it take for you to believe that this is going to work out? I don't know. Time, I guess. Proof that you're not going to get bored or find someone more exciting or decide that being a stepfather is harder than you thought it would be. Your ex-husband really did a number on you, didn't he? Simone laughed, but there was no humor in it. Derek taught me that people leave. Even when they promise they won't, even when they seem happy, even when you think you're building something permanent together. People leave. Some people leave, Jerome said. But some people stay. My parents have been married for 43 years. My business partner and I have been working together for 15 years. I've lived in the same house for 8 years and had the same barber for 12 years. I'm not Derek, Simone. I don't run when things get complicated. How can I know that for sure? Jerome was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the city lights below. You can't know for sure. Nobody can. All you can do is decide whether you want to take the risk. And if I'm not ready to take that risk, then I'll wait. I'll keep being here, keep proving that I'm not going anywhere until you are ready. However long that takes. 3 months later, Simone was featured on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine as one of the top 40 under 40 business leaders in America. The article detailed her journey from abandoned wife to successful restaurant owner, and the accompanying photo shoot had been done at Simone's table with Isaiah prominently featured alongside her. Derek saw the magazine at a newsstand while walking to his office. His law practice had been struggling since his personal life imploded, and several of his bigger clients had moved their business elsewhere after the ugly details of his divorce from Bianca became public. He bought the magazine and read the article 3 times, sitting in his car in the parking garage. Simone looked radiant in the photos. Confident and successful and genuinely happy in a way she had never looked when she was married to him. Isaiah had grown into a beautiful child who looked at his mother with obvious adoration and at the camera with the confidence of a kid who had never doubted he was loved. The article mentioned Simone's business partner, Jerome Hamilton, who was also being considered for a franchise partnership that could make Simone's table a national brand. There was a photo of Jerome and Simone working together in the kitchen, their body language suggesting a relationship that went beyond business. Derek closed the magazine and sat in his car for a long time, thinking about the choices that had led him to this moment. He was 36 years old, divorced twice, estranged from both his children, and watching his ex-wife's success from the sidelines like a spectator at his own life. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. Saw the article about Simone. She looks wonderful. You really messed that up, didn't you? Yes, Derek thought. You really had. That evening, as Simone and Jerome cleaned up the restaurant after another sold-out night, Isaiah fell asleep at his usual table. Jerome carried him to the office couch while Simone finished the deposit, and when she came back, she found Jerome sitting next to the sleeping boy, gently stroking his hair. He's gotten so big, Jerome said softly. Sometimes I can't believe he was ever that tiny baby you described from the early days. You would have liked him as a baby, Simone said, sitting down on Jerome's other side. He was the happiest child. Always smiling even when he was teething or sick. Like he just trusted that everything would be okay. He still trusts that everything will be okay. That's because of you, you know. Because you made sure everything was always okay for him. Simone looked at Jerome, at this man who had become so important to both her and Isaiah, and felt something shift inside her chest. The fear was still there, but it was smaller now, quieter. Overwhelmed by something stronger and more persistent. Jerome, she said quietly. Yeah. Ask me again. Ask you what again? About moving in together. Ask me again. Jerome smiled, the kind of smile that started in his eyes and spread slowly across his face. Simone Patterson, would you and Isaiah like to move in with me? Or better yet, would you like me to move in with you? Because honestly, I love your apartment. It feels like home. Yes, Simone said, and the word felt like a door opening. Yes, we would like that very much. 6 months later, Simone's table celebrated its 5th anniversary with a party that included the mayor, several celebrities, and food critics from across the Southeast. Jerome had moved in with Simone and Isaiah, and their life together had settled into a rhythm that felt natural and right. Isaiah, now 7, introduced Jerome to his friends as my almost dad, and had started asking when Jerome was going to officially marry his mom. Jerome had started asking the same question, though more privately and with a vintage engagement ring he kept hidden in his sock drawer. Derek drove past the restaurant that night, as he had done occasionally over the years, and saw the celebration through the windows. Simone was laughing at something Jerome had said while Isaiah danced with one of the waitresses. They looked like a family, not the broken pieces of Derek's abandoned obligations, but a whole, complete unit that had been built on love and choice rather than biology and legal documents. For the first time in years, Derek didn't feel angry or resentful as he watched them. He felt something that might have been peace. Simone had built something beautiful without him, something he never could have given her because he had never understood what real love looked like. As he drove away, Derek made himself a promise. He would stop driving by the restaurant. He would stop checking up on them online. He would let them live their lives without the shadow of his regret hanging over them. It was the first truly selfless thing Derek had done in years, and it felt like the beginning of becoming the kind of man he should have been all along. Too late for Simone and Isaiah, but maybe not too late for himself. Inside the restaurant, Simone raised a glass of champagne to toast their success. To new beginnings, she said, looking around at the life she had built from the ashes of her old one. To second chances and chosen family and the beautiful future we're building together. To Mama. Isaiah shouted, raising his glass of apple juice. To all of us, Jerome added, his eyes meeting Simone's across the crowded room. And as the celebration continued around them, Simone felt the last piece of her old pain finally dissolve. She had gotten her revenge in the best possible way, not by destroying Derek, but by building something so beautiful and successful that his abandonment had become irrelevant. She had won not by defeating him, but by proving that she had never needed him at all. The little girl who had been thrown away had become a woman who was cherished. The abandoned wife had become a successful entrepreneur. The single mother had become part of a loving family built on choice rather than obligation. It was better than revenge. It was redemption.